movie games. Hollywood's attempt to cash in on the massive video game industry. Video games based on movies have been around really since console gaming started, with early examples like Halloween on Atari, and the infamous E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which is regularly blamed for crashing the video game market. In general, it's common knowledge that these games kind of suck usually, but every once in a while, you've got that one movie game that somehow, for some reason, strikes gold. Everyone knows the amazing 007 GoldenEye, X-Men Origins Wolverine, that blew away the movie in every way possible. Ghostbusters was an awesome sequel to the movie. Even those Lord of the Rings games back on the GameCube and the PS2 were a blast to play through. So yeah, some movie games are actually good. And that's where today's game comes in, The Mummy Demastered. I'm so confused as to why this game even exists. Game development now is so expensive overall that companies tend to stay away from these kind of games, relegating them to shitty mobile phone apps that nobody cares about. But here we are with a new movie game based on Universal's rebooted Mummy movie, an extremely lackluster reimagining of a classic. It's not very good at all. I reviewed it. If you want to see that, you can click the link up here, is it? I think it appears right up there. You can click it right up there, and then you can watch that review. But yeah, The Mummy Demastered is surprisingly fantastic. As soon as I started playing it, I knew I had to review it because it's really not getting any attention. They didn't even really advertise it much, it just kind of came out. No one knows what I'm talking about when I mention it, so people need to know. This game is good. The ones responsible for this game are the talented developers over at WayForward, probably my favorite modern-day gaming developers. These guys are masters of recreating retro video game experiences for today's gamers, and responsible for some awesome titles like Double Dragon Neon, Contra 4, and DuckTales Remastered. And The Mummy is very much a retro experience, from the gameplay to the look, which makes the Demastered title clever as hell. And graphically, it looks like something that would have existed on the Super Nintendo or the Game Boy Advance, which is clearly what the developers were aiming for, and completely nailed it. The story is based very loosely on the movie, with the evil mummy Princess Amenette being awakened from her tomb and being unleashed into the world. That's about all the story has in common with the movie. Instead of focusing on the uninteresting story of Tom Cruise's character, the game ignores that completely and does its own thing, putting the player in the role of a badass soldier in Mr. Hyde's secret Prodigium organization that protects mankind from monster threats. The story is basic and straightforward, but for a game like this, that's fine. The appeal here is in the gameplay, and it's crafted beautifully. The Mummy Demastered is a mixture of different ideas plucked from various great games and meshed together into a single experience. When I first downloaded the game, I thought it was just a basic run and gun game where you blow through different stages, but to my surprise, it's so much more. The map screen here might look familiar to you if you've played such classics like Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That's right, The Mummy Demastered is a Metroidvania style game. As you explore multiple areas, the map fills in, and certain areas can only be reached if you have specific weapons or power-ups. You can't blow up some doors until you find grenades. Some doors are stronger, requiring C4 to blow them up. Certain skills are also needed to progress further. A ledge is too high to reach? Find the power-up that lets you run faster and jump further. A secret wall looks like it can break? Find the power-up that lets you charge through objects. And these are just some of the power-ups that you can get, right alongside items that permanently increase your ammo capacity and your maximum health. All these aspects of the game are faithfully recreated from the classic Metroidvania style of gameplay. The Castlevania feel is heavily found throughout The Mummy, pitting the nameless soldier against armies of creatures you'd normally find in a Castlevania game. Undead corpses, giant bugs, flaming skulls, and of course plenty of mummies. And there's even a clock tower area with spikes, moving gears, and windows in the background with red light coming through. It doesn't get much more Castlevania than this, and that's not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. And how do you fight these creatures? Well, no badass soldier is complete without an arsenal of weapons. And this is where the game mixes in the run and gun style of Contra, starting you off with a basic assault rifle with unlimited ammo. More powerful weapons are found throughout the world of The Mummy, such as a machine gun with a faster fire rate, and of course a flamethrower. My two favorite weapons, though, are easily the rocket launcher that shoots multiple rockets at once, and the plasma cannon. This beast shoots this massive beam that chains from enemy to enemy. Once I got a hold of this gun, I kept it handy at all times. Devastating power. but I did run into some technical problems while using it. In later parts of the game, with more enemies present on screen, every time I used it, the frame rate took a noticeable hit. I thought it was my Xbox at first, or maybe my download was bad, so I restarted my console and that fixed it for a little while, but started up again. I even played through the game a second time and I had the same exact problem. It's almost as if the game couldn't handle the awesome firepower of this weapon. Now, to be fair, my Xbox did recently download an update for the Mummy, and I haven't played it since that update, so it is likely that this was fixed already. And like any good retro-styled game, awesome boss battles are a must. And the Mummy Demastered delivers. Since there's little spiders in the game, of course there's a giant spider that crawls around the ceiling, causing all sorts of shenanigans, and sending little minions your way. The second boss you fight is Ammit, the crocodile-headed, soul-eating monster from Egyptian mythology that's equipped with fireballs and charge attacks. Anubis, one of the Egyptian gods of the dead, flies around the screen with multiple staff attacks. And the giant scarab atop the clock tower, one of the easier bosses in the game, fires lasers at you and attempts to bring you down on the spikes below. The final boss is the Mummy, Amenet, who's actually fairly easy, summoning minions and throwing her blade around, but the game takes the battle a step further. In the movie, she gained her powers from the god of death, Set, but we never see him, although he's mentioned quite frequently. While in this game, Set has his own boss battle here as the real final boss, alongside Amenet. And this is where I ran into another technical issue with the game. This footage I just showed you was from my second playthrough. During my first playthrough, both Set and Amenet stopped attacking me for no reason, rendering them completely useless. Now, of course it did benefit me as a player, but it made the final battle extremely easy. Not entirely sure why this happened, but maybe this is something that also got fixed with the latest update. But aside from the boss battles, the stages are also well designed, taking locations directly from the movie and expanding them into full-blown areas to explore. The headquarters of Mr. Hyde, the underground Crusader gravesite, the EMT crash, which is a really small part of the movie, is even thrown in, and the Mummy sand attack on London. It's recreated in an area with a constant sandstorm blowing. Solid gameplay, great level design, and awesome boss fights are all complemented with a badass soundtrack. That perfectly embodies the retro spirit, sounding like a cross between Mega Man and Stranger Things. Just check out some of these tracks. Another really cool feature that makes the gameplay even more interesting and forces you to play smarter is how death is handled. If your player dies, he becomes a reanimated zombie that joins Amenet's forces, so another soldier is deployed. Now this new soldier has none of the weapons you've collected throughout your adventure. Your dead zombie agent still has them all. To get them back, you have to find your old self and destroy it to reclaim your items. And you better hope you haven't died multiple times in the same area, because you'll have to fight all of your old corpses, one of which is equipped with your old arsenal, and will use it. The total length of the game is decent, to. If you try to explore multiple areas and take your time improving yourself with weapons and upgrades versus gunning it to the next waypoint every time, the entire experience adds up to about 3.5 to 4.5 hours. Normally, I would say that's a bit too short, but for a $20 retro-themed game, it's just fine. And if you're a completionist like me and like getting all the achievements or trophies, there's a healthy set to be found here that'll keep you pretty busy, including one that requires you to beat the game without dying. Another one requires you to die and kill your old self. So to truly 100% this game, you do need to play through at least twice, bringing my total playtime to about 8 hours. So yeah, for $20, that's just right. I've played $60 games that have been half as long and half as fun. The Mummy Demastered has absolutely no business being as good as it is. While the movie is one of the most lackluster, uninspired movies that I've seen this year, the game is actually one of the best games of 2017 in my opinion. And if I do have time at the end of the year to make a top 10 list, this definitely has a spot reserved in it. Don't waste your time with the movie, go download this game and play it. On PC, on Switch, PS4, Xbox One, doesn't matter. It's available on everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, leave me a like down below and of course a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure to click that subscribe button and make sure you follow me on Twitter. This is Fabian. I love you guys and I will see you next time.